Hello. Okay, I will share my screen. Okay, so my article was Vietnamese Blue and White and Related Wares by Regina Krahl. So Regina Krahl is a specialist in Far Eastern ceramics. She was elected president of the Oriental Ceramic Society at the British Museum. And her written work includes Chinese ceramics, highlights of the Sir Percival David collection, which is at the British Museum. So she has a lot of connections to the British Museum through her work and research. Main statement of the article was that the study focuses on a few distinct stages of the development of blue and white wares and provides some landmarks for the development in Vietnam. So Krahl's methodology and evidence, one of the things is that it expands upon a centerpiece of the studies of Vietnamese blue and white wares, which is a 1450 blue and white bottle preserved in Topkapi Sare in Istanbul, and the article talks about its design and inscriptions. Along with this, there's also a big theme of international influences from China and elsewhere, such as the Middle East. And the article also talks about a lot of variation in glazes and designs and development in the different styles of glazes and designs. So some of the terminology that the article uses is, of course, blue and white. So blue and white is talking about cobalt glaze, which was used like painted onto the surface, and there was white glaze underneath that. Another thing that the article mentioned was the chocolate base. So the bases of some pots have a brown rim, which that is like an iron dressing. It's like, I guess it's like an orange red color around the bases of some of the Yuan Dynasty blue and white wares. So the article also talks about different styles, such as like modest styles and like more elaborate styles. So like I took modest style to mean more simplistic line drawings rather than I guess more elaborate and intricate ones. So mass production was something that the article mentioned, and this became more common in the late 15th century. Another thing was frilly designs. So like frilly to me means detailed, flowing, organic, thin lines and shapes, kind of wispy, light, and lace-like. So I think I can see some of the frilly aspects in this design on this Vietnamese plate. So some of the details of the author's argument and evidence are, again, talking about the 1450 blue and white bottle that's preserved in Topkapi Sare, Istanbul, and this is a photograph of it. It's the centerpiece of all studies on the subject. A lot of that has to do with the fact that like it has inscriptions on it, which help us to place it in a time period and give it some history. So the article mentions that it's a splendidly potted and painted blue and white bottle with a date equivalent to 1450. And it represents a high point in Vietnamese expression in ceramics. It predates other pieces by over 100 years. According to the inscription, it was painted for pleasure. So yeah, like I said, the information on the inscription is extremely informative. It dates to a period when China's porcelain production was at a low point. So like during that time, like I think as this piece shows, like Vietnamese ceramics was like really thriving. Um, it seems kind of like a Yuan blue and white style, but on closer inspection, the Topkapi shows differences from any 14th century piece that was being made in China at that time. For example, it had this really globular body, which is a very Vietnamese style. So another thing is talking about cobalt. There was different types of cobalt that were being used on Vietnamese pieces, such as um, the Middle Eastern cobalt that was imported. So this cobalt was very pure. So the color was a really deep blue, and sometimes it even looked kind of black. Then there was locally sourced cobalt from Yunnan in southwest China, which was so unrefined that the iron would kind of turn it brown. So like this vase on this slide would be more like that, because as you can see, the color is a bit more muddy. So local and imported cobalt were often used on the same pieces. So they would have sort of a dual color effect, which I think is pretty cool. That like it wasn't really that one was better than the other. Because they often just used them together and they worked kind of differently. So Vietnam often followed Chinese influences and styles with a lag of about a century. So, okay. Talking about, yeah, right. Okay, I was talking about how Vietnam often followed Chinese influences and styles with a lag of about a century. That was this slide that I wanted to talk about. But then moving on, variation in glazes and design. So there was a use of white in the Yuan dynasty style, which was like more purposeful. So white was kind of used as like a negative shapes underneath the cobalt, which in some cases there would be it was more focused on the painting of the cobalt, but in the Yuan dynasty style, white was also like a really important part of the design. So there was an interest in color since the late 15th century. So toward the end of the 15th century, the quality of blue painting declined, and as potters became more inclined in using the color, this was like parallel in China as well. So that was technically and stylistically similar to the underglazed blue wares. So designs and shapes that were produced in blue and white around 1500 were also often made in polychrome versions. Unfortunately, I could not find any colored pictures of the polychrome versions, but this is a black and white version of this. So red, green, and yellow enamels were often used on their own, and gold was sometimes used instead of yellow enamel. So yeah, this is an image of one of those polychrome plates, and as you can see, like it's kind of a similar brush work style that was still being used, but it was just in multiple colors instead of just the blue and white style. So my thoughts on the article was that it was really clearly written. There was really good information about Vietnamese traditions of blue and white and also polychrome. And I was really interested to hear about how they related to other countries and how Vietnam sort of like followed China's lead on a lot of things. But not only that, they also had a lot of unique aspects separate from other country styles. And this is my bibliography. Thank you for listening.